So this session, I just realized I haven't done my hair or anything. Sunday, in it though. So this session we're starting off with a fresh research pool, and we're working on the story about immunity or autoimmune deficiencies or pools around immunity. Don't know how else to say it. The pool is on Arena. You can see above. This will be available now. But pretty much, if you are joining this room at any point, you can also add to the research pool. But for now, I quite like that it's just me and it's a bit quiet. Should be braver and publicize this a bit more. So there's a few things that I want to try and capture in order to build a story out of this research. Shall I explain? So we build the research pool, and then a story is written based on the research in the research pool, and the way it's written follows certain guidelines. So we end up with a piece of writing that appears as fiction, but it is actually based on fact-based research. That was a really good summary. Go me. So yeah, I kind of have an outline for the story I want to write already. So yeah, it's just a matter of filling in the research. I don't know if I should tell you that outline or not. Maybe I will. Oh, excuse me. That was rude. So I'll tell you the outline, but then I'll do another video where I'm writing it. Each story has, well, not every story. Generally, there's a character who is speaking, telling the story from within the story. So our character this time is someone who has been born with an immunity disorder as part of just an ongoing immunity disorder, not one that comes and goes, and one that is very hard to treat. But we follow them through several stages in their life, going from being born with this immunity disorder. Actually, the first thing is being born, then diagnosis, which would be done quickly, you imagine. And then going to how to deal with being allergic to pretty much everything around you as you're growing up, to the invention of medication that will help you deal with immunity, to having this immunity disorder solved, with the sort of twist at the end. I want it to be a really short story. I think they've been getting longer and longer. So I want to try and pack all this into a much shorter writing duration. So we'll see. So one of the references that there's a few references, there's a few things that link to my own lived experience. And anyone actually that grew up as a fairly sickly child. In my case, it was tonsillitis. But there's a lot worse. Maybe we'll start with David Vetter. Actually, no, we'll start with Bubble Boy the film. So I might go to Cine Media actually. So Cine Material is a place I like to go because they have a very well-researched collection of film posters and film sort of associated material. I'm logging in because sometimes it requires credits to download stuff. So I'm looking for a film. Oops, that's not what I want to do. So this was actually Jake Gyllenhaal's, I think, his first proper film. It's definitely his first starring role. What is that? What is that? I like this site because usually there's not a lot of stuff that's been made up or uploaded without being verified. But I don't know what this is. That's super weird. Life is an adventure. Don't blow it. See, this just looks terrible, doesn't it? Textless. That's super weird. But maybe that's enough of a reference without. Should probably actually add the whole film as a reference. I haven't seen the film because it looks terrible. So I don't know. I should really see it before I do anything else. What is this? So the other thing is from here we can usually go check out movie stills. So this is a site that's associated with the one we're just looking at, except they look at stills. And there aren't any. Oh, that sucks. Definitely no stills. Back to Google. What does the description say? Jimmy is a young man born without an immune system, so he doesn't have one at all, which means he would be probably dead. Can you live without an immune system? That is something to look up. Can you live without immune system? Just stop that there. I don't know why it's opening a new thing. What would happen without the immune system? It's never good getting medical information from Google, huh? Living without an immune system. So this is something we're going to look at. SCID. World building. What the heck is this? What is this? This looks terrible. Is it for gaming? Immune system health just shut down completely instantly. And after a certain period, it went back to normal. How much time with him is it? Real example is basically, well, this is that's not going to help us. RareDiseaseReview.org. I love industry newsletters and publications. Is this, how legitimate is this though? It's so weird. Living without a room. The average human comes in contact with millions. This we will add definitely. I don't mind including sources that are very sort of a bit, can be perceived as a bit naive or undercooked, because as long as it reflects an aspect of popular culture, like that there is the fact that this comes up in search terms towards the top says that this has a certain potency in terms of its relation to popular culture. What have we called it? Immune system. There we go. See, that will be added here now. Takes a little while to warm up. What does this say? I want to read this. The average human comes into contact with millions of pathogens a day. It doesn't include bacteria and viruses or daily like mistakes. What happens though? Infections which are common and harmless in infants with normal immune systems can be quick to overwhelm that of a child with SCID. So it doesn't say that they don't have any immunity whatsoever. Children born with undetected or unmanaged cases will be subject to certain deaths from infection within the first year of life. Initial challenges with that diagnosis. I see here we have David Vetter. He will just come up all the time. And it's, if you don't know the story of David Vetter, you might be familiar with the idea of the Bubble Boy, which was kind of the nickname for this poor kid. We will look at the story of David Vetter in a sec, if you're not familiar with it. His older brother died in infancy from SCID. His parents had been informed there was a 50% chance of their next baby boy would always have the disease. So that doesn't tell us. Living with it has this is actually a bit useless. What does Kiora say? This will be so ill-informed. Can a human stay alive without an immune system? What? Just get lost. See, who is this? Immunologist, biomedical researcher, lecturer. We'd have to verify that, but technically yes, as long as a human does not contact any infectious agent. Okay, that makes logical sense. Whether one would consider surviving in a sterile environment where you can never even touch the body. See, the question I have is, and this is where maybe start to look at David Vetter. See, I have links saved in here for David. This we will add to our channel. So David Vetter. Should I try and tell the story? Maybe there's a better link that does tell the story. David Vetter. What was this? Oops, no, I don't want to share it. I just want to make it bigger. Can we make it bigger? No. Okay. The story of David Vetter. His parents were a Catholic couple who obviously didn't support contraception or abortion as part of their religion, but they were also made aware that any children they could have would possibly be born with this severe combined immunodeficiency order. You can see here it says inherited lacks the white blood cells that fight infection. So the blood cells that help you fight colds and flu and stuff like that, they're imprinted when they're. This is without sounding like a doctor. So when you get a cold or a flu, the certain cells are imprinted with information about these cold and flus when they're fought off in order to fight them off again if they ever occur again, or any similar sort of infection that might come someone's way. So in the case of severe combined immunodeficiency, there's none of that sort of system of immunity, or if there is, it's very poor, and the body just isn't able to combat infections like someone without this would have. So this couple, they knew that the potential for any children they had to have this was quite high. They already had one child who was born with this and died shortly after birth. So then they had another child, which is David Vetter, little David. And this time, the hospital and the doctors, it was Houston's Texas Children's Hospital, where they were in contact with. They decided they were going to try and keep David, or this new child, alive as long as possible. The interesting thing is it became a bit of a sort of experiment, an expensive experiment. So yeah, there is there was a discussion about the ethical concerns around using someone's life as a medical experiment, pretty much. Oh yeah, so this I'm gonna bookmark this article. It's quite helpful, but it also makes the whole story a bit sadder. To those who measure life by production, this life was a total and complete waste, began Reverend Lawrence Connolly's eulogy. He continued, but to those who who measure life by giving and receiving, David's life was on the fullest ever known. This is not completely true because there was a lot of medical advances that were made by doctors and by places like NASA, which I'll talk about in a sec, who did benefit in terms of production from David Vetter's life, even if David didn't directly benefit. There were many benefits that came from it. So these are some of the players. Kevin Vo, who was a professor of ethics. This is what I want to get hold of. I need to dig a bit further to try and get hold of that. So this guy wrote a piece for the Chicago Tribune following David's death about the ethics around what happened to this little guy. Conception, reasons for optimism, impossible to destroy life. Failure to imagine the worst. I remember this was a really interesting article, but I can't remember why. This is where we get into. So pretty much, I have trouble explaining while I'm researching. Let's go back to the spacesuit. Where did that go? Wow. I don't know if you can hear talking in the background. I apologize if you can. This is an inflatable prototype suit. So this is a museum, I think in Texas. You'd assume it was in Texas. It's courtesy of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. That's interesting. Just hold on a sec. So, as much as David was studied and there were vaccines and things made based on his blood and all this sort of stuff, the couple that gave birth to David lived or was located not far from a NASA, the space the guys who send the rockets to the moon. Not far from the NASA center. So NASA decided this was also an opportunity for them to develop or to experiment with various ways of keeping the body safe from germs and secluded from external sort of environments. So they built him an experimental suit. All this stuff costs loads of money, but it was there it is. It was inflatable. Most of his existence. See if we have some pictures, maybe. I should mention some of these are a bit heartbreaking. David Vetter. Yeah, so I think he lived until he was. Wikipedia will tell us. died. Oh, so his his younger brother died when he was 7 months old with the same sort of disorder. And David lived till he was how old was he? It says he was 12. I thought he was a bit older. But the whole time he lived, he was either in this sort of inflatable, like massive humidity crib thing, or he was in this bizarre spacesuit. I don't know why he seemed to spend more time in this sort of thing, and that's a picture of him with one of the doctors that was sort of looking after his well-being, or however you want to describe it. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't spend more time in this. Maybe there was issues around like how much time he could spend in there. I don't know. Yeah, it actually looks like quite a clumsy apparatus when it has this attached to it. Everything, all these environments he was in were all had air sort of pumped into them constantly, or else they would collapse. So they're all inflated, which means they all have like machinery attached to them. You know, when you go to a fair and there's a bouncy castle, and around the back of the bouncy castle there'll be this like generator making this god awful noise. So that was what he was sort of experiencing his entire life, just being in this space that's constantly being pumped with air. That's him having some classes, I think, doing schoolwork. The other thing is like there's all this fuss about him not being able to come in contact with the outside world because what might happen, but and like everything had to be sterilized. And there's a really good article actually, like saying, I'm not saving any of these to the Arena page, which is bad. Let's do that. But there is an article on that same website that talks about the ethics involved on like the day-to-day things they had to do to make sure anything that went into there was sterile, because obviously he would need to be fed when he was younger, he would need nappies changed, like all this sort of stuff. There were nurses to assist his mum with doing things like that when he was younger, but they talk about how a lot of his food was tinned because had to be sterilized. He couldn't drink Coca-Cola because there was no way to boil Coca-Cola or to affect it in a way that would render it, suitably sterile for him to be able to sort of be given to him inside his sterile environment. I just think like the idea of sterility has probably changed since the 70s, and that maybe he was actually coming in contact with things that might not have been as sterile as they could have been made now. Yeah, I guess that's a controversial opinion in some ways. Yeah, so apparently with the studies that they did on him, the suit he wore apparently cost $50,000 and came with a 54-page user's manual. Wow. Okay, I'm just going to add these to the research pool. I think I've already added this one, haven't I? Let's have a look. What have I added? Wow, that's annoying. We don't need to add Wikipedia. We need to add something referencing Bubble Boy, because I think this film is based on the story of David Vetter, except it's a wacky screwball comedy. That's why I'm here looking at this terrible poster. There's one that didn't have, yeah, that one. I would like to add this one. Do I want to download the actual artwork? Looks like I'm doing it. Let's just look up Bubble Boy and I'll grab it was only 2001. the 80s or something. Maybe we can add a trailer. Shall we watch a trailer? That might be jolly, huh? Classic trailer. This will be terrible, I'm sure. I don't even know if you're able to hear this. Am I able to hear it? Oh God, no, 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 no more. Oh no, let's just add the still. It'll be fine. That looked terrible. That looks so bad. Okay, here we go. Here's an article that we can add instead. That might be a bit safer. What can it teach us about self isolation? Oh my God, this is from this year. Are you serious? Like, wow, all the films you could pick to talk about self isolation with, and you choose Bubble Boy. Well done. Who is this hack? Adam White. Sorry, there's an opinion. Immune systems. It's probably a very good article, well written and well researched. We're adding it to the pool anyway. I kind of feel like there's two stages to this research component. There is the collecting, and then there is the sifting. And in the collecting, like, I don't think you should discount things if you can help it. What is this John Ottman business? What is this? Work project. Is this somebody who made the film? Bubble Boy composed. What did you do? Oh, I think they did the soundtrack. What is this? This was a synthesized rendering of what was to be the title sequence of the film, animating the birth of Jimmy. It was given some storyboard sketches and a verbal explanation of the title sequence story. We start out in a dreamlike land. The camera begins pulling back to reveal that the dreamland we're in is really a bubble. Soon the screen is swarming with many bubbles, each with little hints of what's going to come in the film itself. A dinosaur from the land of the lost goes by, as well as a school of Jesus fish. She's also made homage to the swarm of images until we enter the birth canal. We scroll down this canal and we see Bubble Boy's feet in the foreground. So is this someone that does title sequences? I am saving this. Even bad ideas have like some sort of interesting background information sometimes. I'm not sure what we're going to watch right now. Yeah, he's a composer. Yeah. That's just audio. I don't know if you can hear that as well. Let's get rid of all this Bubble Boy garbage and get that out of the way. So what have we collected about David Vetter? Because I would like to add some more. I think we added all this stuff from American Experience, which sounds like, a fake Trumper website, but is actually like connected to the Public Broadcasting Corporation in the States. Is just a very unfortunate piece of branding and titling, I think, that's sort of gun ho Americana stuff that's been co-opted over the past however many years. David Vedder isolation suit. Did I add that? Let me have a look. I did add that. TB Ward. Why am I? There's a few things that I kept. This is actually from another project that's very similar, based around the film Safe, which is part of a workshop conducted via bus projects in Melbourne. But the crossover is very deliberate and very helpful. So what was I looking at when I did this? Volcano escape Israeli mobile isolation units. Oh yeah, I was trying to find like current day equivalents to the environments that David Vedder was living in, and I found these mobile units. Apparently, it's a big deal in Israel. Oh, excuse me, what? It's afternoon in Australia. There's no reason why I should be yawning, and I've also had quite a large coffee, so I have no excuses right now. This is eye surgery inside an isolation tank. This idea of like what's inside and what's outside is really interesting too. And then what is the interface? Like, is this just a hole? In which case, that's not really helping people with immunity disorders. But this one I thought was interesting because this looks like a sort of airlock over here. What is this? Sort of stickers wrapped around it. So what happens in here to keep these guys sterile? That's what I think is really interesting too. And also the fact that this can be set up anywhere. Although, look at this. It's quite elaborate. It's a bit like at the airport. Do I have that picture? Or maybe I do. That might be helpful. So when I was traveling back to Australia in April, airports were open but very empty. And they had set up these really interesting plastic nets around any customer service areas. So they were mostly devoid of customer service people. I'm just plugging in a drive which should have some pictures of that, what I'm talking about, hopefully, on it. Media archive, camera, 2020, April. And I think it would be, it's not April, it's May. Rotterdam to Melbourne. So I'm just going to have a quick look. I have all these pictures of the airports from the time I was traveling. I really want one of these plastic shields they had wrapped around counters. I was a bit worried about getting in trouble for taking photos of things, but honestly, like, there was no one around who would really have cared, I don't think. And I'm looking, I've got lots of photos of blank video screens. It's not super helpful. An empty airline carriage. Come on. Wow, I don't think I took any. That's really annoying. That's really annoying. Dang. But yeah, they had like these plastic shields that were strung up to the ceiling in this sort of haphazard way that was really interesting. This definitely goes in our research pool. Thank you very much. I'm just going to have a look if there's anything else in here. What for nothing? I think we found location, but why 4 years on? What was this? don't think this is about the film. Oh, this is how I started my search for information about David Vetter. I don't know if this. Maybe I'll just quickly flick through. I'll add it. It's not deep research like this. It's just pictures. You can see. Maybe I'll just go through them and I'll explain to you what I know about them so far. Is this actual thumbnails? Okay, cool. So this is we can see David was born at 26 he was placed. After 20 seconds of exposure to the world, he was placed in a plastic isolated bubble. So from when he actually came out of the womb, he had 20 seconds of exposure to the world before he was placed in the isolated bubble. The other thing is too is, does exposure to the world build immunity or build resistance? That's the other question. So maybe being totally secluded, maybe he needed more little breaks. I don't know. Who knows? Baylor College Medicine Photo Archives. This is all the supplies for him, I think. So this must be how they decontaminated things before they gave them to him. So they had decontaminated materials in a separate bubble because it doesn't look like he can climb through. Yeah. This is one of the nurses that were assisting the family and looking after him because they had to have special training into how to do things through this sort of glove interface. There's the NASA suit. I love this photo because just the look on his face looking at this doctor that has pretty much instigated this whole bubble environment business. Connect 4, teaching. This was just before he had a bone marrow operation, which, everyone was made aware of the risks, that this might not work, that there was a chance that the bone marrow wouldn't be compatible, and it was the early days of bone marrow transplants, and unfortunately it wasn't, and he passed on a little while later after that photo. That's enough David Vetter. It's actually quite depressing. What is that? Why is that guy's face there? What are you doing, CBS News? Let me just check where it, because there was some other places I wanted to go. Oh yeah, there was just one image, and I feel like that I wanted to do a series of them, but I couldn't really work out how it would fit in. But it references a film that I think is relevant. In my head, there's a whole, COVID, this, pandemic film series, film festival that can be put together that would be interesting. What the heck is that? What is that? That actually scared me. What was that? So this is a still from a film called The Andromeda Strain, in which a pandemic kills all these people in a small town. If you haven't seen The Andromeda Strain, so I'm not sure if you can hear the audio when I play stuff. It's these scientists then go into this underground bunker, which is meant to be all sterilized and infection proof, and they go into this bunker to analyze this pathogen that turns this village's, all the people in this village, that turn their blood to sand or something. If you haven't seen it, it's a very strange film because the film itself feels really sterile. Even though it's meant to be like this action adventure, it feels very controlled. The script is really interesting because it includes diagrams, which then appear as like computer readouts within the film. So I started combining stills from the film with pictures from the script, which I really wanted to continue, but then I was like, why am I doing this? But, the film relates to, I guess, architecture as an immune system. How if you cannot protect yourself from something, then you can build a body around you using architecture rather than a suit. I wonder actually if there is a picture of the. Nope, go back. I might upload one more picture because this. I need to do I want to do like a thorough going through the film and capturing stills and overlaying it with bits of the script because it's interesting, but I would like it to be useful as well. This image, I don't think there's an overlay on top, or is there? We'll see. Come on. Oh, there is. Okay. So it's not. This is when it's not very helpful overlaying the script on top. So this is almost like the body that these guys inhabit as antibodies. Well, they're not antibodies yet. They're becoming antibodies by trying to work out how to fight an infection. But they're sort of, this is their exterior body, and then they're the antibodies inside working out how to fight. And the infection is brought in via two survivors from the village, and they're brought in on sort of gurneys down this chute. So the infection comes into the body, and then these guys, as antibodies, use the structure of this underground laboratory to sort of slowly work out how to eradicate this this infection from everywhere else as well, though. I don't know. There's an analogy there to architecture as bodies and things like that. I think it's really interesting. Shall I read this? If you haven't seen the film, it's called The Andromeda Strain. I should update this so it's more accurate. So in this scene, he's explaining to his fellow scientists who have just sort of been called in to help to analyze this pathogen. And he says each level is a different color based on a Navy study of psychological effects of color in environments. I want to know more about that. And then he's gesturing to the screen and says also each level is biomedically cleaner than the one above it. We don't want anything to contaminate a possible organism. That will make it twice as hard to isolate and characterize. It will take us 16 hours to descend through the programmed decontamination procedures on the first 4 levels to level 5 where the main labs are. Now, apparently this idea of having the floors different colors and that the characters progress through the different levels in order to get to the labs at the bottom where they can analyze the actual pathogen. I'm saying pathogen like I know what that means. I should look that up as well. Oh God, I'm going to do it, aren't I? Actually, can you? Yeah, you can see this screen. Pathogen. Pathogen. A bacterium, virus, or other microbe that can cause it. Yeah, okay. This is a cute little. What is it telling me? It's telling me nothing. What are the 5 pathogens? A variety of microorganisms can cause disease. Pathogen organisms are 5 main. This is weird. This is like need for humans to categorize illness in ways that are helpful but also super restrictive. The whole idea of diagnosis. What year is this? Where is the year on this? That's the other thing is like I've realized that researching 2001, yeah, so like when you start looking at medical research, things change from year to year, you know? You really have to be aware of when you're reading something. Doesn't mean that old information is bad. It just means that you just need to be aware of the time something is written, I think, or produced. I'm going to add this to our research pool with a grain of salt. That's enough pathogens. And we've looked at Andromeda strain. Let me just check what else is on my shopping list. Yeah, the porosity of bodies. Huh. Okay. If we look at the outline, I'm going to throw in. Should I throw in my own immunity disorder? That's the question. Maybe we can have something from SAFE. Actually, you know what I want to include? So this was something that people were freaking out a bit for a while. I don't know what happened. Building syndrome. EPA? Would the EPA be a good source? I noticed WebMD have a thing about sick building syndrome. 1991. I mean, that would have been when. Would that have been when people were freaking out about sick building syndrome? What I should do is actually find the origin of the term sick building syndrome. It sounds a bit like broken window. What is that broken window? I love the connections that you make when you're doing research like this. It does make me feel unfocused at the same time. Broken windows theory. Psychology Today, I don't think so. Broken window theory origin. Where did the broken window theory? Okay, here we go. This is what we want. 1982 and just popularized. This is what I remember. New York City Police and Mayor Richard. Yeah, okay. Maybe we don't need to go there right now. But let's look up the origin of sick building syndrome. Just and see what year it originated. The term was coined by the World Health Organization in 1986 when they also estimated that 10 to 30% of new bit often was heading into like who, I'm not saying who, but like where did the World Health Organization get this information from that they then released in 1986? That's a question. Yeah, interesting. Again, I'm just going to add this to our research pool. What I'm going to do is this is just a bit of collecting. I will do some sifting, but not live. I'll do it. Just realized I've sunk into the corner of the screen. Let's go back and just have a nice image while I do a bit of a sign off. Yeah, so what I'm going to stop recording and stop going live, and I'm going to do some more quiet research, because actually talking while doing research kind of doesn't help. the address. So see that address up there? That means this is an open channel, open research channel. If you're watching this, you can add to that channel. If you go to arena slash many rooms slash immune systems, you can also add to this research pool. I'm going to go and do some quiet research away from this live setup, so I don't have to be talking. Probably don't have to be talking while I'm doing research. I should probably just do it. But once this is built up and I've sifted through it, then we'll write the story, and we'll do that in this live environment as well. And if you want to know when this room is live, just follow this. It's many rooms preview. So this is where you can find out when things are live. But for now, I'm shutting off. Yeah.